Well, welcome everybody. It's a small group, but an interested group, and I'm pleased that you're here. And my name is Guy Blood, and I'm president of the Edmonton Interfaith Center. And we're pleased to be able to put on these kinds of events from once a month, usually, lunch and learn. And it's a special privilege to welcome the speaker today, which is Dr. Marie Gervais, longtime friend of mine, and I was meaning to say the lovely and talented Dr. Marie Gervais. And so it's a pleasure to have her. Before we ask her to speak, though, I'd like to say a few words about where we are and how we came to be here. And back in the 1870s, I think, the indigenous people of the prairies got worried because they saw surveyors and they saw settlers coming in and sitting on the land and taking possession. And they wondered what was going to happen to them. And they approached the Governor General of the Dominion of Canada at the time and arranged a meeting. And there's several meetings actually. And those meetings resulted in Treaty 6. Treaty 6 covers the land of central Alberta and into Saskatchewan. And it tells us what happened, or what our rights are, and actually the indigenous people ceded all the rights to the land except for small reserves throughout, in exchange for all kinds of services and benefits from the Dominion of Canada, many of which did not get delivered, and we're living in that kind of guilt ever since, and trying to fix it as we go. So just acknowledging that we're on Treaty 6 land, and that we owe the indigenous people that lived in this land ever since some debt of gratitude. And we're currently working on that throughout Canada to help mend the relationships between the settlers and the indigenous people. So with that, I'd like to ask Netta to say a few words, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Guy. Dr. Marie Gervais holds a PhD in culture and learning in the workplace. She's a member of the Baha'i faith and active in the local community. Through her work in leadership training, she's coached more than 500 supervisors, managers, and business owners for career and business success. She hosts the Culture and Leadership Connections podcast, featuring diverse leaders around the globe. Her writing can be seen on a website and a blog, which I'll put into the chat. Marie is also a musician, creative writer, and visual artist, living in Edmonton with her husband Roger, a psychologist specializing in workplace testing. And I can imagine what your dinner table conversation might revolve around when it's just the two of you. They have 4 talented children with equally talented spouses and 5 beautiful grandsons. As well, she served on the board of the Interfaith Center, and it was a pleasure and an honor to work with her. I miss her creativity, her originality, certainly her musical contributions, often several concerts that we had that she was very involved in. And she mentioned Roya a few minutes ago, a beautiful singer, musician who has entertained us and helped out with events at City Hall several times. I look forward very much to reading Marie's book. And take it away, Marie. Thank you.
Thank you, Netta, and thank you, Guy. Lovely dedication for Treaty 6. I really appreciated that. And Netta, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm just going to share my screen and get started with the PowerPoint. The book, I'll tell you about the book. I'm going to focus on the sacred texts and the sacred traditions piece of the book. And I have some readings from the book that are short that will give you sort of a taste of what it's like. The book is called The Spirit of Work, Timeless Wisdom, Current Realities. It has been published as of 1 week ago. And so it's hot off the press, as they say. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm sure we'll have some time for questions in the end. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say. And if you have a burning question, you can certainly do that as I go through it. Is everybody seeing my screen? You'll have to tell me because I can't see the chat.
Yes, it's clear.
Oh, great. All right, so the title today is Learning from Sacred Texts About Healthy Workplaces, which is a very large component of the book. You'll find out about the entire format just in a way. This is the bio that I sent to Netta, which she read in a much more interesting way than the way I wrote it. And this is on the website, and it's a little bit of an introduction to me and writing the book, and it also shows you some of my family members. It's a minute long, so I'll just play that for you now. My name is Marie Gervais, and I wrote the book, The Spirit of Work, Timeless Wisdom, Current Realities. I have a business called Shift Management, where I work to help managers to lead more effectively so we can have happier workplaces. I also have a podcast called Culture and Leadership Connections, where I interview people from around the world in a variety of professions to find out what makes them work and the groups that they belong to that influence the way they see themselves in work, in leadership, and in culture. I have hobbies. Some of my hobbies are to play the piano. I used to direct a choir. I don't currently, but I may start again. And I used to and still do perform with my husband, who is also a musician. We're both musicians together. All our children are also musicians, and they have married people who are multi-talented. And so we have a pretty artsy family. I like to paint as well, and I really love working with children. One of my previous careers was to be a teacher, and I intend to write children's books next after The Spirit of Work to prepare children for careers by thinking ahead of time about their skills and talents and working in the world of adults. So that's a little bit about me, and I hope you enjoy reading the book. There you go. My name is Marie. So that's what the book looks like. It's available in e-format and also paper version. And the premise of the book is that there are three ways to understand work, and we have really only looked at not even one. So the first one that I focus on is time-honored teachings of the world's sacred texts on the topics of work and working, and anything that would influence our attitude towards work. And then I also look at the advancements of science affecting work and examples of existing work systems, both positive and negative, and the hidden beliefs that fuel individual and collective actions. There are a lot of stories in the book, and some of the stories are from the secondary teachings of the world religions, and some of them are stories from workplaces that I've worked with, and some of them are my own stories. So, and I will tell you some of them today. I'm going to first just read a little bit from the book, and this is, my book starts out with a tribute to First Nations, and it honors the work of Richard Wagamese, who is a really amazing First Nations writer who passed away not so long ago. And this is what I start with. I start with a quote from one of his essays. All my relations means all. When a speaker makes this statement, it's meant to recognize the principles of harmony, unity, and equality. It's a way of saying that you recognize your place in the universe and that you recognize the place of others and of other things in the realm of the real and the living. In that is a powerful evocation of truth. Because when you say those words, you mean everything that you are kin to. Not just those people who look like you, talk like you, act like you, sing, dance, celebrate, worship, or pray like you. Everyone. You also mean everything that relies on air, water, sunlight, and the power of the earth, and the universe itself for sustenance and perpetuation. It's recognition of the fact that we are all one body moving through time and space together. To say these words is to offer a doorway to that understanding to those who hear you. It is to proclaim in one sentence that this experience of living is a process of coming together, and that it was always meant to be this way. Richard Wagamese. So that's the beginning of the book, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, how this started. Many years ago, I was in the middle of a very unpleasant work experience working as an instructor at the University of Alberta, and my particular faculty was very exclusive, snobby, and difficult to work with. And I was also taking an art research course, and I had to do an exhibit of language-less experience with people that I was communicating with other than language, and also an exhibit of my own, something that I found traumatizing in my life. So I did the two. One was I interviewed 3 immigrant families who did not speak English, and I didn't speak their language, by looking at their family photographs together and taking pictures of them and us, looking at the pictures together, and them trying to communicate with me through gestures and through their pictures. And they all showed me places of work where they'd worked their careers, and it was really interesting to see their workplaces across cultures. The other side was me showing how excluded I felt at the faculty where I happened to be teaching. And, pictures of staff meetings going on with me looking at it from the outside, and, the photocopying machine with my name not on, not on the agenda and things like that. And so I then invited these 3 families to come to the exhibit and see at the end of the course. And it took up 2 entire hallways to look at the photographs and the artwork. And they looked at their own projects, and then they came to mine, and they stood there. And although we didn't speak English, they looked at me with tears in their eyes. They touched their hearts. They touched mine. They hugged me, and they communicated to me that they too had felt exactly the same way at their workplace. That's when my idea about the spirit of work was born. I was thinking workplaces for many people are unhappy places and places where people have trauma. And I would like to turn that around. But that was 20 years ago. So then fast forward to 5 years ago, when I worked with a plant manager, and they had a really huge culture of criticism and fear. I was working with 7 of their plants, and there was a lot of gossip and backbiting and destruction. If anybody who accomplished something, somebody would shoot it down. And this particular plant manager was quite different from the rest, and he really wanted to change the culture of his plant. And so he said he wanted to have a rollout, and he wanted to have some collaboration and some encouragement happening, but he didn't know how. So I will tell you more about his story as I go through the presentation. And he did find out how, and what he found out has a lot to do with the spirit of work. So I'm going to read you another piece from the book, which is the preface of the book on page 7. And the premise of work is thus: there is an inherent spirit. Oops, that's the wrong one. There we go. The purpose of this book is to shed some light on the fascinating relationship between people and work, from the perspective of what it means to be a whole person related to every other being. It considers that we're propelled by an intrinsic worth and a desire for both self and other actualization. This inner drive has little to do with profit, consumption, accumulation of material goods, notwithstanding the necessary monetary requirements to make a living and the necessary diversity of monetary gain that will differ across contexts. Rather, it is a call to unity and to justice, stemming from our spiritual reality and the essential oneness with creation. The result of this exploration is a call to rethink work, informed by new understandings about the greatness we are destined to achieve as a human race. I propose that it is possible to imagine and operationalize better ways of being and doing at work, ways that help us bring our whole selves to work within multiple communal contexts mutually affecting each other. Glimmerings of more promising ways of working are already around us if we are able to see them. So when I was writing the book, I wanted to say that people say, oh, leave your baggage at the door. You just, bring some piece of yourself to work and just do the job that your employer wants you to do. But you can't leave your baggage at the door. We all bring our whole selves to work, whether we are aware of it or not. We are bodies, we are spirits, we are hearts, we are minds, and we have communities. And so those became the themes of the book. But the essence of the book is that we have a soul characteristic, which is spirituality, and it is the essence of who we are. And that unless we recognize that, we cannot be happy at work. So there is an inherent spirit of life that we share with all of creation. Unless we understand, respect, and nurture this spirit, we are like the proverbial blind man and the elephant. In trying to describe the elephant, each man insists that the part he touches is the whole. One holds the trunk and says the elephant is a snake. Another holding the tail says the elephant is a broom. Still another close to the ear says the elephant is like a waving fan. All have only a limited understanding of the animal we understand to be elephant, yet they mistake the part they know for the sum. To date, we have focused on workplace well-being as if it were a limited thing to be understood and categorized. What if leadership for workplace well-being were intimately connected to the spiritual, infusing all other parts and continuously evolving beyond the known? Within this paradigm, proof that we are getting it right would be the expansion rather than the contraction of what it means to be a human being engaged in productive work in the world. So I have a metaphor in the book which compares the workplace to a spider weaving a web. And the interconnectedness of all things is the various strands of the spider web. And the spirit, our soul, is the mysterious ability of the spider to create an entire web. The workplaces are the webs, and everything else is a strand. And that's from page 9 of the book. The need is very great everywhere in the world for a true spiritual awareness to pervade and motivate people's lives. No amount of administrative procedure or adherence to rules can take the place of this soul characteristic, this spirituality, which is the essence of man. And that's a quote from the Baha'i writings. So in this holistic approach to work, which is considered just scratching the surface and hopefully will inspire other people to write in and research on that area, these are the themes of the book. There are 8 chapters, but I focus on these 5 themes. And I'm going to read you little pieces here and there so that you can see what it is like. So something that I find particularly interesting and will be interesting to people in the interfaith community is the qualities of the soul and work that came up when I started looking at the writings of the world religions. And it was quite a labor to try and find the writings online in English from all the world religions. And it took me a lot of digging. And it just made me think how important it is for us to have a repository of all the sacred texts of the world in languages so people can look them up, because it's difficult. It's difficult for people to find them. And so I'm just going to tell you some of the qualities of the soul that I found that affect work. This is from Hinduism. There's quite a bit on Hinduism in this chapter about bring your soul to work. But there are several qualities, 8 powers of the soul that directly relate to working within Hinduism that I really love. And I wanted to just say that if we even used one of them, how much better people's work experiences would be. So number 1 is the power to accommodate, to be flexible and accept others. Number 2 is the power to tolerate by developing an awareness of internal and external influences and not allowing either of them to control us. Interesting, eh? Number 3 is the power to face and confront by facing obstacles and standing up for justice. This power is activated by truth and love. Number 4 is the power to pack up, bring things to closure, and not stay stuck in old stories. This is like thousands of years old and we still haven't learned it. Number 5 is the power to discriminate, which is the ability to see the difference between right and wrong in both subtle and obvious situations. Number 6 is the power to judge and to assess the quality of our choices to ensure that each day is better than the last. Number 7 is the power to cooperate by giving time, attention, experience, and wisdom in service to others while working alongside them. And doesn't this sound like it was just written for today, right? And then number 8, the power to withdraw by stepping back, disengaging, detaching, becoming aware of one's own point of view and role, interacting with each other in ways that we see multiple perspectives, and ensuring that our actions are informed by the purest of motives. I don't know about you, but I had to think about that one for a long time, thinking how important it would be to just apply even one of these to workplaces and make that part of their mission statement or their core values. And Christianity has some really good things to offer too. And my favorite is Islam, which I'm going to mention in a little bit more detail from the perspective of a couple of Muslim psychologists who came up with a really interesting metaphor, and also a personality test that people can use in the workplace. So from Christianity, the idea is that the soul comes from and returns to God. It animates the body while in this physical realm, is active in both wakeful and sleep states, has the capacity to have and to learn from experiences, can interact with other souls, and is subject to judgment upon death depending on how individuals lived and the degree of their faith. Again, all of those things could significantly impact the quality of our interactions at work and how we make decisions about work, should we choose to do so. And then in Islam, there's this really great concept of the spiritual personality based on the Islamic concepts about the nature of the soul. And it was developed by 2 Muslim psychologists, Zohair Abdul Rahman and Nazir Khan, in their work, which is called Souls Assorted, an Islamic theory of spiritual personality. And I love that, the essay and also the book that I read. And it was really interesting. And they focus on 2 broad spiritual orientations, which they then divide into 4 types of personalities. And so have to do with knowledge and 2 kinds of knowledge, experience versus judgment, and then action versus restraint. And I mean, just think about that. What should we experience and how should we make decisions would be the first kind of knowledge. And the second one would be, how do we take action based on knowledge, and how do we restrain ourselves based on knowledge? So that's the premise of their personality model that they create. And then they have these 4 spiritual personality archetypes, which they call the hand of power, the voice of justice, the heart of inspiration, and the eye of vigilance. And the way they apply it is I had to think about it for 2 weeks because I was so inspired by it, because it's a unique application of psychology and Islam to the workplace, and shows how people can be seen in the fullness of their humanity, with their individual personality characteristics, under the umbrella of a spiritual orientation towards life. And I'm not going to read you more from it because it's too exciting to just read about it yourself in the book. It's only 3 or 4 pages, but it's definitely worth your while to look it up. So if we come back to this plant manager who had this problem, and he didn't know how to have a more inclusive and workplace with a better workplace culture. And so he said to me, I have this rollout, and I'm the smartest person in the room, and that's why I'm the plant manager. And so I already created this plan, and there's really nothing to do but to roll it out and hope for the best. And I said, well, have you ever spoken to anybody else in the plant about it? And he said, why would I, since I'm the smartest person in the room? And I said, well, you might get some perspectives. So you can see here, this is one of the models that I have in the book. You might gain from the diversity of perspectives. If you have all stakeholders present, things might look different to you and to them. And if you consult the people most affected by this rollout, you may also change what you think. And he said, okay, but I'm not likely to do that. So he met with his first inline managers, and within about 5 minutes, they discovered 11 flaws to his program, and he was absolutely flabbergasted because he thought it was perfect. And he asked them what they thought he should do next before implementing the rollout. And they said to him, well, we would like to consult with our supervisors and with their teams. And he said, but most of them don't speak English fluently. And they said, that's not a problem for us because we have designated translators and we manage to get through, and we have lots of things that help us to communicate. And the plant manager wasn't even aware that they were having difficulties communicating, although how he could not know that when he couldn't, even greet most of the people in his plant is a bit surprising, but that's true. He wasn't aware of it. So they then communicated to their managers more things about the rollout from their perspective, which were very helpful. And they told their superiors, so to speak, in the plant, that they didn't understand the numbers that they were asked to report on, and could those numbers be explained to them. And so a little lesson was devised and taught them how to affect the numbers that they were inputting and that they were looking at and that they were reporting on. And they realized that they could change the results of everything in the plant. So they could make things move faster or slower. They could ship with no damage. They could lower the costs. They could increase productivity without fatiguing their crews. And they started to do it. And they were getting such good results that they communicated to their other friends and relatives in the other plants the same understand the numbers lesson. And pretty soon the whole plant of the whole company was doing better. And so what happened as a result of that, not only was the plant manager thrilled and had a whole new paradigm for how to work with his staff, but they had less absenteeism, they had less accidents, they had less complaints to HR. All of this took place in a period of about 2 months. And then the people who hired me fired me because the changes that they were seeing were coming up to the top, and they were starting to get requests to make changes to the way they did things and saw things and how they consulted, and they weren't willing to do it. So you can see that the potential was there for change. However, they weren't able to move forward, but I suspect they were anyway, because the plant managers and the employees and their supervisors had all been empowered to move forward. And I'm sure that they were still seeing results in spite of the fact that we didn't complete the entire process. So that's one story. I just want to stop and do a little check-in to see what you think. How's this sitting with you so far?
It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm very taken in with your presentation. And we'll just wait till the end, and then maybe you can take some questions. Just allow for that, please.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't boring you.
Oh no, rest assured you're not.
Okay. All right. So here we are at the next part, which is, this is kind of the premise of the book that I reinforced throughout the entire book, which is that we can choose to have soul enhancing thoughts and actions, or soul diminishing thoughts, words, and actions. And it's not that we're going to be perfect at it all the time just because we choose to do so, but it gives us a framework from which to operate that expands rather than contracts our human potential. So to build inclusive workplaces, we need to encourage soul sustaining thoughts, words, and actions. And these are some of the soul sustaining things that you will see. So encouraging others to speak, individual expression, problem solving, intuition, vision, purpose, use of the arts, talent development, dreams and goals. When people have no dreams and no goals, then they're really, they're demoralized and discouraged. So you're going to see awe and wonder, you're going to see excellence, you're going to see appreciation of diversity, delight, humor, altruism, faith, hope, love. All of these things are expressions of a soul enhancing culture. And if you allow toxic workplaces to exist, you will see a lot of soul diminishing behaviors mushrooming, and that they will be discouragement, anti-learning, anti-science, dogmatism, blind conformity, complete disregard for the needs and feelings of others, rigidity, fear, lots of fear, greed, and especially grinding misery and tyranny, abuse and oppression. So, and here's a few more: closed-mindedness, intolerance, rise of addictions, harmful habits, lying, inequity, injustice, and rampant disease. So, which would you rather work in? I'd rather work in a soul-enhancing workplace myself. And when you are part of a soul-enhancing culture, you feel like you belong, but you can be your true, unique self at the same time. And I thought this was a great quote: we remember criticism, but we respond to praise. And so as people learn to encourage and build each other up, and they also speak truthfully, but they're thinking kindly as they're doing it, and trying to phrase things in a kind manner, everybody feels like they belong, and you're developing a culture of a soul enhancing workplace. So now this is one of the chapters in the book is called Bring Your Heart to Work. And I'm just going to read a sampling of some of the sacred texts at the beginning of the chapter. So you can see that I truly did look at all the world religions and also indigenous teachings as much as I could to put them into the book and learn from them myself. So here's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. Even more intriguing to me is the karma of our health. Again, let me illustrate one or two kinds of connection. For one, the Buddha says we are not punished for our anger, we are punished by our anger. In other words, anger is its own karma. Set your heart on doing good. Do it over and over again, and you will be filled with joy. This one is from Psalms. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And from Ezekiel, and I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. And Abdul Baha from the Baha'i Writings, do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. And there's associations in all of the world religions with the heart and knowledge, light, action, and learning, which is, I would like to do a whole book about that. So here's one. Knowledge is a light which God casteth into the heart of whomsoever he willeth. The heart must needs be cleansed from the idle sayings of men and sanctified from earthly affections, so that it may discover the hidden meaning of divine inspiration and become the treasury of the mysteries of divine knowledge. That's from the Baha'i writings. And in the Old Testament, for the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit, of joints and marrow, and discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. So that's at the beginning of every chapter. There are quotes from sacred texts, and it's also interwoven throughout the book. And that this led me to develop about 3 years ago a model that I've used with a lot of workplaces to give them a simplified version of getting started on the spirit of work. And it's called the SWELL model: safety, well-being, encouragement, and learning. You can come into it from any place, but I prefer to have people start with safety. And you ask probing questions to yourself and to the people around you to see to what extent things are safe. So, do I feel safe at work? Is this procedure safe? Is the handling of the products safe? Do our services offered in a safe manner? Do people experience safety when they are in interaction with us? What's the birth and death life cycle of a product or service that we're offering? And who's affected? And are they safe? It could go on for a long time. And do people feel morally safe, intellectually safe, spiritually safe, emotionally safe? If you start asking questions about safety, you're going to get into the spirit of work very fast. Once people feel safe, the next piece is to move into well-being, which is how can our spirits expand, and how can we start to be the people we were intended to be, these precious gems that are just waiting to be developed. Well-being isn't about gym memberships. It's about recognizing, acknowledging, and seeing people and interacting with them in ways that help them to feel that they truly belong. And then encouragement is the food of all of those things. So it's such a culture of criticism and a culture of tearing people down. All you have to do is listen to 5 minutes of any political debate, and you'll see how bad the discouragement and criticism is in our society and all around the world. And if we can reverse that with encouragement, imagine political leaders saying to each other, I really like the way you explained that. It was so insightful, instead of calling them names and shouting them down. We could grow all sorts of projects that would be of benefit to our country if we weren't engaged in shooting each other down. So, and the same thing with learning. Everything is learning, especially if you reflect on it afterwards. And learning can be incorporated in any way, space in the workplace. So then I ask workplaces, on an individual level, how could safety be applied in your organization? On a community level, how can everybody see themselves as needing to contribute to the SWELL model? And on an institutional or corporate level, what are you doing to encourage, support, and sustain behaviors that will promote safety, well-being, encouragement, and learning? It makes an interesting discussion. And here I wanted to show a couple of healthcare workers have been very badly treated. And I know quite a few nurses who have been spit on, kicked, hit, called racist names, tripped in the hallway, and ended up in the hospital from the abuse of patients over the past year. And so how do you think they feel at work? And I'm sure this and the administration isn't supporting them either. So they're alone. They're not supported, and their own powers cannot really be realized. But yet, if we start to realize them, acknowledge them, encourage them, recognize the experience that they've got, build their learning, their spirits expand, and so does our capacity to work with people in less stressful ways. So another model that I have in the book is a virtues sequence model, which I have found. I found it first in the Baha'i writings by looking at writings and seeing it was really interesting how they kept pointing to these in this specific order each time. You didn't always see the whole sequence, but the pieces of the sequence were always the same. Then I found it in the writings of other world religions as well. And I thought this is really significant for work and also for thinking about governance. So at the very beginning is love and truth. If you don't care about the people that you're working with, or about your job, or about what you're doing, or yourself, and if there's no love there, you can't move to the next step, which is wanting to know the truth about a situation. If you love someone, you want to know the truth. The less you love them, the less you want to know the truth. And so love and truth are the foundation to justice. You can't have a just society if there's no love and there's no desire to seek the truth. And you don't get to unity if you have an unjust situation. You can't ask people to kiss and make up when there's inequity and poverty and exploitation. So you don't get unity without justice. And the more you focus on justice, the more likely you are to create unity. The more you seek unity, the more you also seek justice, because each of the virtues goes back and forward. And as you build unity, there's more peace, and you experience more peace. And as you have peace, abundance is a natural outcome. So people are, oh, let's just share the wealth and we'll be fine. Doesn't work unless you have a whole virtues foundation. And that sequence is extremely important, because everything that doesn't have a strong foundation eventually collapses. And so all of the efforts that we've made, for example, in community development around the world, were based on the idea of distributing wealth. And 97% of them have failed because they weren't based on love, truth, justice, unity, and peace. So if something's not working in the workplace, you can start to ask what's missing and see where it is on the virtue sequence that you have a stumbling block. And I illustrate that in the book and also in workshops that I've given. So the question is, how could these principles heal your workplace, your life, or people that you know who are working, who feel demoralized, and or perhaps you know of some really wonderful workplaces, which I also talk about in the book, because they're such good examples. Nothing is perfect, but it gives you a good way to get started on some of the principles and get moving with it. So there are many examples and many stories. So this is the book. It's available in paper and ebook version, as I mentioned before. And I do want to end with this beautiful trailer that was made by the publishing company, Friesen Publishing, about my book, with a lot of input from me, because it took them a while to understand the concept. But I think it's pretty nice the way you can see it here. Sorry, let me try that again. That, my friends, is the end.
Wow. Well, fantastic, Marie. I'll jump right in. We'll take questions in a minute. I want to say that some of the ideas, like so many ideas, are so obvious and yet so neglected. 50 weeks of the year, 8 hours a day, many of us labor for decades at jobs that, as you say, we either don't enjoy, are not fulfilled, are places of fear and trauma. And by many people all over the world, that's sort of accepted as inevitable, and it is a tragedy, an absolute tragedy. So the basic respect that you're talking about, respect and understanding, is just absolutely brilliant. So questions, please. And there's nothing in the chat right now, but please, people, just raise your hands. I think, Sheikh, you said something earlier. Why don't you start?
It is a very interesting presentation. I think all those who are joining in are seniors. So it's really a good presentation for people in the middle of these work stints. So the question that comes to mind, why do anybody has to work?
Because work is necessary for the development of the soul.
But would that be a premise for the person to go into work?
No,
is
in
it-
the
okay.
beginning of the book, I talk about there's two sides to work. One is sustaining your existence, and the other one is recognizing your purpose and your heart's desire. And that's something that continues until the end, until the last breath that you take. And so work is also housework, work is childcare, work is caring for elders, work is contributing to the interfaith, work is taking care of your community and contributing on boards, and work is everything that we do that we put the fullness of our hearts and souls into, and that matters to us, and that sustains either us or other people in some way. And that sustaining may be monetary, but it may also be just giving you intellectual stimulation, for example. You know, my 93-year-old father-in-law, who he works to help maintain the Morinville seniors community, and he organizes events for them, and he participates there, and he calls on people and makes sure that they're safe and that they're taken care of and that they're not lonely. That's his work, and he's going to continue to do that until he can't do it anymore. That's also important work. I talk about that in the book as well.
Okay, so you are referring us to read the book to get the full concept.
Yeah, can't really do the whole thing in 40 minutes, but
Yeah, I'm just putting forward that when you are speaking to a bunch of seniors that basically most of their life is behind their back, again, it becomes to be like work becomes to be a very individual, purposeful target that people go into it for these specific personal rewards. But
I don't agree with you on that. And you'd have to, again, we have to read the book. We don't work just for personal rewards. We work because it realizes the potential of humanity. And until we see that, we don't reap the full rewards of working. And so we also, all of us, we are all in the seniors category. I don't think I'm quite there yet, although I look as gray. But we all have people in our lives who are working and might need some help. And we also can reflect on our own work, because the experiences that we haven't resolved, or that we haven't moved forward to their full potential, are still affecting us. So I think I hope that answers your question, at least to a certain point.
oh, it does. It is an ongoing conversation.
Thank you. Dawn, please.
While you were speaking, Marie, I had a flashback to a summer job that I had when I was in high school in Edmonton. It was as a filing clerk, and it was actually a job that my dad got because he knew someone at the Workers' Compensation Board or something. But what I found was that the girls who were there working full-time were bored to death. They did as little work as they possibly could. They were waiting for some prince to come and rescue them from, and get out of there. All of their potential was being wasted. They were killing time all day long. And I got raving reviews and they gossiped. The minute you turned your back, they gossiped about you, and they didn't know a thing about me. So I got these raving reviews because I couldn't stand being around them. So I worked all the time. And then at lunchtime, I went out on the hill and had lunch by myself. But I thought, what is their future like? And what do they have to offer their children? And it just seemed such a waste.
Yes, I have had similar experiences. I'm sure many of you have as well. And there are three stakeholders involved in the spirit of work. individuals, communities, and institutions. And as an individual, you can do so much, certain amount, but then there needs to be a conscious effort for community building. And institutions have a role to play in facilitating that, an atmosphere where people really see themselves as being valued and valuable and have important work to do that suits them. So when you put all three of those together, you reach the goal. But until we get there, we can each do a piece depending on where we are. And that's probably as much as we can do without expecting that the whole system will change overnight.
Hello, Marie. I just wanted to,
Oh, sorry.
can I say something? Okay, Marie, I found this talk today was really quite timely. I work in a healthcare profession. I've worked in every area of the hospital, and I really see that there's quite a need for, change. There's so many different personalities that we work with, or that I've worked with. And, certain people who I will always remember are the ones that had soul, that you describe as bringing to work love of life, energy, always being there to help other people. And those are the people I like to emulate.
Totally, totally.
We all have, choices, hey, do we want to work there? We don't want to work there. Do we like those people? Do we not? And if you keep bringing negativity to your workplace, it's just a downer for everybody. And you can really start to have little cliques, and that's not healthy. And I find even in my current workplace, there are cliques. And I just really try to disassociate myself from being in that type of thought.
I have a lot of really empowering stories that I think you would like in the book about
Absolutely.
individuals that were able to make a sustained change to the culture of where they were by basically taking one idea from the book. They didn't take it from the book because they didn't have the book, but one of the ideas about the spirit of work, taking that one and applying it made such a significant difference for many people. So I hope you find that encouraging. And also when people hear about that there's a possibility for them to do otherwise, they just weren't exposed to it. They didn't think there was any other way. When they hear about something different, they think, I could actually, just like those workers in the plant who went, we can move the numbers. They suddenly had the power to move the numbers. So it's the same. People don't realize they have the power to do anything.
Thank you, Heather. And Marie Farah, your turn.
Hi, Marie. This was great. Thank you so much for your presentation. This really resonated with me a lot. I've been working for over 15 years in a management executive level, and I'm also a leadership and executive coach. So I also work with clients who, want to improve their career and leadership goals. And I feel like you really hit the nail on the head in terms of what are the things that are important to make a healthy workplace and how spirit plays into that. Whether someone, so for myself, I'm Muslim, and so my faith is very important to me. And, I treat people the way I want to be treated. And, it's so damaging to see the toxicity in the workplace when people don't feel valued, when there isn't that trust, when there isn't that love and respect. Regardless of your background, whether you believe in any faith or not, it is soul crushing. And I think the pandemic was really a way for many of us to see how toxic our workplaces have been when we were able to step away for a little bit and be at home for some of us, which is, I'm guessing, why many people are not wanting to go back to work, because for many of them, it's just not been a healthy place for them. So I really appreciate you writing this book, because I think it's something that will really add richly to the conversation about work and and how it truly affects us. Because I think, as Netta said, we spend so much of our time at work. Like for those of us who have to work, make a living, pay the bills, that's how it is. So thank you very much for this.
You're welcome. Please consider that if you know of a workplace that would like me to do a presentation, I'm happy to do that. When you promote the principles of the book. And I also have other tools that I can help people with. For example, an emotional first aid tool for people experiencing emotional dysregulation from a bad experience at work. So yeah, keep me in mind for
Will do.
presentations
Thank you.
coming up.
Thank you.
And I believe that Guy wants to close. I mean, I finished 10 minutes ago, so I'm true to my word. I finished before the hour.
Are there but we have any more questions, please? I will just say we have a prayer that we say in synagogue every Saturday, and it is, we are brought into the world for three things: to praise, to labor, and to love. And I think to praise God, of course, and to labor. I think everyone wants, whether it's paid work or not, and of course it was good for Marie that you expanded the definition of work, but we all want meaning in our lives, and so we want meaningful work. And Dawn, if those young women, and oh God, I would like that too. My year off after doing grade 12 in university, I did work as a filing clerk in an insurance office, and it was the most stultifying thing I've ever done. And I was too young to see myself as contributing to the insurance industry, which of course I didn't care about when I was 17. But if employers, maybe could some onus on them to just to help their workers understand that they're part of a greater, a necessary industry. Yeah. But anyone else, please, any final comments? And if not, Marie will say thank you again. As I said, I look forward to reading your book. We're going to buy a copy for the Interfaith Center, and it will be available in our library for anyone who wants to borrow it. And of course, you can get one directly from Marie through the website that she has, or through the publisher, as she has posted. So Marie, thank you again so much. It's wonderful to see you.
Thank you, Netta. I will. I can come by Interfaith over the next week and drop off a book for you.
That'd be wonderful. Maybe you'll have time for tea.
Even better.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming. I want to remind you that Sheikh is going to talk to us next Lunch and Learn about a week from now.
No,
look forward to that.
Sorry, 4 weeks.
4 weeks. A month, 4 weeks.
4 weeks from today, Sheikh is going to be talking also at Lunch and Learn about his near-death experience. And we've actually had a request to expand that into a more general discussion about near-death experiences. So Sheikh, I haven't had a chance to ask you that, but we have a month to work on it. So thank you again, everybody.
Thanks everybody for being here.
Hey, Carol.
Great afternoon.
Thanks for the presentation, Marie. It's really interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
Bye-bye.